I'm here right now in St. Louis City Hall. Behind me we have the red, black, and green flag. It is now February 1st, Black History Month. St. Louis holds the distinction of being one of only 2 cities in the entire Western Hemisphere that raises the red, black, and green flag for Black History Month in February. The other city would be Toronto, Canada. So in the United States, it's just the city of St. Louis. Cleveland, Ohio, however, raises the red, black, and green flag for Kwanzaa. This is something unique to certain cities. And for Black History Month, I'm really proud to be standing here in the Rotunda City Hall while this flag has been raised outside and celebrations celebrating Black people, African Americans, African and African History Month right here. And speaking of history, I want to tell you that the first fable that I remember hearing, or lie really, was about one of the founding fathers of this nation. In fact, the president, the first president of this country, of this nation, George Washington. As the fable, or lie, goes, George was such an honorable man that he was honorable all through his youth. He'd never tell a lie. Once his father left the family's plantation to go on a business trip, and I did say plantation, to go on a business trip. So he got his young son, George, and he wanted him to look after the place, and he told him, whatever you do, don't let anything happen to that cherry tree on their property. Well, George promised that he would look out after the property and the cherry tree and no harm would come to it. His father left. Upon his father's return, the cherry tree had been chopped down. Well, George was an impetuous youth. His father asked George, what happened with the cherry tree? And he told him, Father, I cannot tell a lie, as the story goes. I chopped down that cherry tree. It wasn't until years later that many of us who went to elementary school and public education found out that cherry trees weren't even introduced into the U.S. until the Emperor of Japan gave as a gift cherry trees to then President Taft's wife in Washington, D.C. That's when we got cherry trees. That's also an example of his story, someone else's story. Our story is so much different, and now we get a chance to tell our own. There's an old African saying that says that until the lion gets an historian, well, the hunter will always be the hero. We have to be able to separate fact from fiction and control our own narrative. Moses Dixon was an abolitionist, a soldier, and a minister. He was also a freedom fighter, heralded for working very hard with the Underground Railroad. He got his notoriety when he left Cincinnati, Ohio, where he was born in 1824, moved to Galena, Illinois, and began to do organizing among some of the free Black people that were there. What was really significant is that he moved on to St. Louis, where he organized the secret order of the Knights of Liberty. This was an organization largely of Black men who organized other men to move to the South as an insurrection to free Africans who were enslaved in the South at the time under the Confederacy. Their plan was to take over the city of Atlanta, a very significant city in the South at that time. A lot of the commerce was coming through there. Take over Atlanta and thereby freeing the slaves in the Georgia area and surrounding areas as they fanned out. The Secret Order of 12 was another organization that Moses Dixon was able to put together. And they were successful in organizing 47,250 men as soldiers. They were going to go to the South and start the war themselves. But it was around 1860 or 1861, the other abolitionists who had the ear of Moses Dixon and the president at the time, Abraham Lincoln, asked him not to because the country was going into civil war at the time. Instead, they wanted to absorb the troops, then they called the colored regiments, to help them fight in the South. Moses Dixon did that. The rest is history.
We be freestanding Africa, sturdy, strong, striding toward positive potential possibilities, presenting prayers, praise promises, place pronounced.